Bob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, take the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gaps in the story. Mets rise, reclaiming the glory. 7 the city, blue and orange army swarm. Summer vibe electric, love in every form. From Biggie's blocks to Flushing's heartbeat. Our anthem loud, no retreat. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. The apple pops in the outfield, city of dreams. Rob's voice over static, Mets on every stream. White lines mapped out the future, vividly. From Shade to City, the journey's never gimmicky.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Talk Live right here on the channel and, of course, on X. How is everybody feeling today? Nice off day, no complaining, comfortable NL East lead, and the best team in baseball in our New York Mets. How about that? That is something that we wanted for a long time as Met fans. And it's April 24th. I know. I saw it on X. I saw it on social media. People, oh, it's only April. But you know what? If it was 7 and 18, nobody would be saying it's only April, right? So the most important thing is that the Mets are playing well. Despite some struggles from guys in the lineup, the pitching has still been outstanding, and our New York Mets are 18-7, 5 games up in the NL East, and are heading to Washington, D.C., where I'll be and many, many others, to watch our team, the best team in baseball, play in the Capitol. And we got to win some games, right? We got to win more games. Keep it going. This is our opportunity to stack those W's throughout the month of April, as it's the easiest month of the season. And you got to win these games. And that is exactly what we're going to do. So, hit that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel, and we're going to definitely talk all about it. We've got a couple of topics here. We're going to talk about getting healthy. We're going to talk about more about the best record in baseball. We're going to talk about the sweep of the homestand, and we're going to preview a little bit about the Mets-Nats series this weekend. Obviously, it's a 4-game series, Friday through Friday through Monday game series. So you have the pitching matchups on the bottom over there, or your bottom left. You got everything you need to know over the next couple of weeks of games. Obviously, the next series against the Nationals. Then we got the D-backs at home. And then we got the Cardinals on the road. So good news is that there's not much to complain about. But there is some things that you can be a little concerned about, or at least criticism, sure. But overall, going into this homestand, the Mets had a prime opportunity here to beat up a bad Cardinals team, even though they were tough. They played us tough, but the Mets are much better than them. They're not a good team. They'll be a candidate for multiple trades of their players at come deadline time. And then you got a Philadelphia Phillies team that were one of the better teams in baseball, right? A lot of people were picking them to win the division in the preseason, in spring training. And this was the biggest test for the New York Mets this season so far. I know some people said Houston, but that was the first couple of games of the year. It's hard to judge what those teams are expected to be, and they lost a few guys. They're not the same team as they used to be. They're a good team. They're a 500 team, but right now they're a 500 team, but they weren't at the level where the Phillies are supposed to be. So this was our test. We were at home. You have the advantage. Citi Field has been electric, and that is exactly, and Ray's right, it was a statement series, and that's absolutely what it was. The Phillies played like the Mets usually do in a statement series in years past. I think that's 100% true. The Phillies made errors. They made base running mistakes. They've had terrible at bats. Their pitching was not bad. Their bullpen wasn't good. Sounds like the Mets, right? They would get good starting pitching, bad bullpen, bad defense, and terrible base running and bad at bats. All around, it was just a shit show for the Phillies. I mean, just listen to their post game. You would think the Mets knocked them out of the playoff game again, playoff series again, and it's only the first series of the year against these two teams. And Ray, which day am I going to DC? I'm going to Friday and Saturday. Can't go Sunday and Monday. Have to drive back down. I got to get that right down to go back to work. But yeah, Bonilla, Robert Bonilla. Yeah, I agree. Philadelphia. I'm not going to say they're overrated. That's not fair because they got a very good pitching staff. And again, they had two of the hottest hitters in baseball in Schwarber and Harper, and they basically did nothing. So I'm not going to call them overrated. And again, I never want to disrespect the team that has won the division, because until you take them off that mantle, you're not better than them until you beat them and you're in that you win the division. That's the way I always see it. Now, I did say multiple times during Mets Hot Stoves throughout the season and during the season, during the offseason, and then the series preview, that I've felt like the Phillies, who are getting older, just listen to Gary Cohen. He was talking about it. They have a lot of guys over 30. They're getting older. Their time to win is shrinking. And again, just go to the last 3 years. They got to the World Series, lost. They got to the NLCS, got embarrassed by the Arizona Diamondbacks. Last year, they got beat by the Mets in the NLDS. So 3 years in a row, they made the playoff. That's great. I think they won a division twice. And they got to the World Series, NLCS, NLDS. What's next on the list? Right? It is either wild card team and winning, or at least winning the wild card, or just being a wild card team. They're slowly shrinking, right? It's the Nationals that seem like they have a lot of the young kids that are projecting to be very good players, if not, MVP caliber players. So they're maybe a year or two away. But you could see it always happens in baseball, especially in divisions. We see it in the NL East a lot. The Braves dominate the division. Then it was the Nationals for 7 or 8 years. And the Mets really haven't dominated this division. They haven't won multiple division titles. They'll win one, and then they just fall into oblivion. Just the Phillies, the Braves, the Nationals. Those have been the three teams that have dominated this division. Just go back 25, 30 years. It hasn't really been the Mets at all, to be quite honest. Even when they had really good teams, 90, 99, 2000, they were good, but it was still everybody else. It was the Braves. Then it was the Nationals. Then it was the Phillies. And then it was the Braves again. And now it's the Phillies. So at some point it would be nice if the New York Mets dominate a division for at least, can you give me a 3-year span of where we run the NL East? That would be nice. It starts this year, right? We thought it was going to start in 2022 when we had 101 wins, but we fell apart and we choked at the end of the year, and we lost the division and ended up being the first wild card. So I want to see this team dominate a division for a couple of years. That's what I would like. So that's what I would like to see. And again, it takes work. It takes seasons, like the way you start. And don't think for a second that starting like this does not matter. We have a 5-game lead in the NL East. The Braves have won 7 of 9, and they lost a game and a half in the division. They've been playing much better. They've been, technically hot. They've won, I believe, 7 out of 9, and they lost a game and a half. That's what happens when you got 6 games and 7-game winning streaks within a 25 game span. That's why these games are important, because you distance yourself from a team that we know can be dangerous at any moment. They still have multiple injuries. They're not playing exactly well. They've started to. And you just beat the Philadelphia Phillies and you swept them out of your ballpark. And you have a 5-game lead over the Philadelphia Phillies. The Braves are closer than the Phillies, than the Braves are closer than the Mets. I'm sorry. Let me get that right. The Braves are closer to the Phillies than the Phillies are closer to the Mets. That's what you can do this early in the season. And this helps you. Let's say the Mets for the last, let's say they got 4, they got about 7 games. I'm going to add that May 1st game to the last game in April because it's the same series that ends from April and the beginning of May. That's 7 games. Let's say they go 5-2. Let's just say they're playing well, so why shouldn't they go 5-2? That is going 3 out of 4 in Washington and taking 2 out of 3 against Arizona at home. I think that's fair to say. That's not greedy. I think 4-game series are very hard to sweep regardless of who you play. And the Arizona Diamondbacks, who have scored a lot of runs, the Mets are at home and they played extremely well at home. Until somebody actually beats them at home, then we'll have that conversation. But nobody can at the moment. So let's say they go 5-2 over the next 7 games. That will take them to 23-9. Now, obviously, depending on what the Phillies do and the Braves do, we might even have a bigger lead. Who knows? But let's say they're 23-9. That's a damn good record. With May being a little tougher month and June being our toughest month of the season, obviously teams that were projected to be very, very good. And in June, if you look at the teams, they're pretty good. So you get to that point where you're 23-9 going into May. Pretty decent, tough schedule. Not extremely tough, but it's tough. June is the rough month. Even if you go 500 in May, you basically end up being the exact amount of games over 500 as you were starting the month of May. That's key because that means the Phillies have to play 5, 6, 7, and who knows? You can go 500, still be trying to do a quick math. What is that? 14 games over 500. The Phillies going to have to play 5, 6, 7, 8 games over 500 just to catch the Mets if they play 500. And that's a big if. So that is what the Mets put themselves in at this moment. Now, again, they still got to go out there and win over these next 7 games, win series, right? You win both series. Let's say you lose a game of series. That's a 5-2 last 7 games and to end the month. That is what you want because, again, if you have a 500 month in May, you're not really losing much ground, games over 500, and there's a pretty good chance that you're either around where you were in the division ahead, or you might be a game up or a game down. Like, not much difference. Like, the Phillies have to play out of their mind. The Braves have to play out of their mind. That's the gap that you provided in the month of April that can help you if you have a 500 May. And we hope we don't do that. We hope we're over 500, have 5, 6, 7 games over 500, and then we're really talking. But even in June, let's say May and June are, 500 again. I'm just throwing it out there just to paint the picture. Let's say they do that. They're still in a very good territory because are the Phillies, are the Braves going to get red hot going 6, 7, 8 games over 500? And even if that's the case, say the Mets play May and June 500 baseball. Let's just say that. Painted a picture here. It's just hypothetical. Even if they do that, the Mets do that, and the Phillies play 6, 7, 8 games over 500, what are they going to be? A game up? Maybe 2 in the division? And the Braves, who have to play above 7 games over 500 just to catch us. Like, that's the realization right now that Met fans have to understand what the Mets have done and put themselves in the month of April. They've won a franchise record 12-1 in their first 2 homestands of the year. That's a franchise record. That is something that is unheard of from the New York Mets. They've done it multiple times. 11-1, 86, 2015, really cool. but we also have to understand what they're doing here when it comes to how well they're playing in April. And that is without Juan Soto being Juan Soto. That is with Brandon Nimmo basically almost being a zero. That is with, for about the first 2 weeks of the season, no offense from second base. Almost no offense from center field. So you got four positions, three, two, right? Center field, second base, and you can even throw Nimmo out there. So you got three positions in your lineup that basically have done nothing for the first 2 weeks of the season, and you can include Nimmo in there and Juan Soto as well, right? He's done something, but overall, they're not where they should have been in the first. Juan Soto and Nimmo are still, Nimmo's been the worst, but Juan Soto is probably number one on that list, next to Brandon Nimmo, because they're the guys that are going to be there. Again, we're going to have this conversation about what they're going to do with Alvarez and McNeil and who's going to be off this roster. We'll have that conversation in a little bit. But when you don't have almost three positions in your lineup basically doing not much or what you expected from them, and you basically have almost a zero in center field, and you had 2 weeks of basically no offense from second base, and Nimmo being terrible, and Juan Soto being half the person that we all thought he could be right off the bat, and you're 18-7. That is crazy. And Redman, Beatty, we're going to talk about this in a little bit. Beatty's probably not going to go bye-bye. Even Luis and Acuna are not going to go bye-bye. I kind of made a little bit of a list here of who might be the options to go down, and it's going to be very interesting what the Mets do here, because what do they preach? They preach run prevention. They've done that for a while. Stearns has always talked about that. And with Jeff McNeil and Alvarez going to jump back into the lineup here, that's added offense, regardless of what anybody might think. It is added offense, right? I think you kind of get hurt defensively with McNeil and Alvarez over even Acuna, Beatty, Torrens. I think that's a huge difference, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, Redman, I don't think they're going to send down Brett Beatty, and I'll tell you why in a little while. And again, Brett Beatty has played a little bit better. Again, that home run was shocking to everybody, even myself. But I don't think Brett Beatty is going to get sent down. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So in this overall situation, with the Mets having a 7-0 homestand and 11 games over 500 and 5 games up in the division, they put themselves in great position to have a subpar month over the next 2 months. That's what they have done. Now, you can't have, a 5-game under 500 month back-to-back, because then you put yourself right back into a 500 territory record-wise. You don't want to do that. But it gives you at least one of those months where you can be, a couple of games under 500. And you're not going to hurt yourself to the point where it's like, oh, man, look, we buried ourselves in the division. Unless the Phillies even play out of our minds, or the Braves for that matter. And then, but even still, they're going to still be in a good position 3 months into the season. And that's what they did so far this April. And again, 7 games left this month. Again, I'm including the first game in May because it's a series that starts at the end of April. So 7 games to end the month. 5-2, even 4-3. It's not spectacular, but even if it's 4-3, that means the Mets either split with the Nationals or lose the series, or vice versa. They swept the series against the Nationals and lose 2 out of 3, or lose, get swept. Like there's a lot of combinations. But let's say it's 4-3, it's still not bad. You still end in the month of April, 22-10, and you're still in really good shape. So overall, this was an outstanding homestand. The Citi Field was electric. I think they said over the homestand they had like 121,000 fans at Citi Field for the homestand, which is outstanding. It's the largest homestand in Citi Field history, I believe, since 2009. I think it ranked over that. So they're showing up, right? They average about 36,000 fans in this homestand, and that's it's awesome. This I don't remember the last time I heard City Field that electric in April. Like it's never been like that, to be quite honest. Maybe 2009 when they first opened the ballpark and everybody was happy because it was a new ballpark and new amenities, new foods, all that stuff. And it's always cool to see a new ballpark. Obviously, you would always miss a little blue stadium in Shea Stadium, but overall, new ballpark brings new fans. It just brings people to the stadium to see it for the first time. So they had record numbers to that point, and you kind of beat them this year already in April, and that's a good sign. So, and yeah, Dolo, yeah, I mean, listen, Steve Cohen called out the fans, and you know what? I know people got pissed off by that, but when you're an owner who's basically he's burning money. Let's be honest. He's taking money out of his pocket, and he is still not profiting from the New York Mets. Like, he's losing money ever since he owned the team every single year. And again, he's not crying in the corner because he's losing that money. But again, when you own a business, you want to make profit. Like, I don't care how rich you are. It just makes you even more obsessed with money. So I understand where he's coming from. And the Mets fans did not show up until like late August into September. Like, that was a fact. And they were playing extremely well for 3 months before that. So I understand. I wasn't mad that he called out the fans. They always want you to spend money, but those are the same fans that don't show up. And, don't even, support the team going on the road or, turning on the TV every single day. And, obviously Steve Cohen doesn't get money from SNY, but, just think, SNY is still owned by the Wilpons and their group. So you staying at home watching SNY is putting money in the Wilpons' pockets, not Steve Cohen's pockets. So going to the game, buying merchandise, all that stuff is important, but attendance is important. There's a ton of money that goes into that. Yeah, Mr. G, I understand. Look, I live in North Carolina now, so I understand. Like, I haven't been to Citi Field this year. Prior to moving, I went to the first 5 games of the year in 2024. Obviously, they were first 6 games because of a doubleheader, but they were 1-6. So, that was the last time I was at Citi Field. I know it's tough, especially, I'm closer than maybe some, but it's not easy, right? It's a lot of money to travel to Citi Field if you're not in New York anymore. So I understand that aspect, but when Steve Cohen says, show up, I just spent $765 million on Juan Soto. Show up. You wanted them, you got them. Now, whatever I might have thought or anybody else would have thought about the offseason moves, which again, who could predict the starting staff being this good? But I was concerned about the start. I was mad that he didn't get a top line starter, right? Will that live up to the hype if they don't get it? If the pitching falls apart at the end of the year, who cares, right? That's done. That's over with. But he spent a ton of money this offseason. He bought back Pete Alonso and Juan Soto, the two almost the best bats on the market. Well, technically, right now at least Pete Alonso is, but Juan Soto was the biggest free agent on the market, and Pete Alonso was the best first baseman on the market, and it wasn't close. Even with a tough season from Pete Alonso last year, he was. So he spent a ton of money. He asked the fans, come out. He challenged them, and they showed up, right? All it takes is a little bit of, hey guys, let's go. I mean, we got a beautiful ballpark, the best food in Major League Baseball in any stadium. The vibes are fun. He changed the Jumbotron. He changed the screen. He put all LED lights on. He did put so much money into it to make the experience great. And Mets fans didn't show up until very late into the season. So he was pissed off. And I understand that. And he's still being pissed off, got Soto and brought back Pete Alonso. So, Rose, I agree with you. But he has been building a product. It's up to the players to do the job on the field. Steve Cohen can't grab a bat or grab a ball and throw it. like, and swing a bat. He hasn't built the bad product. Now, when guys don't perform that should perform, that's on the players. Like, I understand. Listen, I've been going to City Field, Shea Stadium for years when teams were horrible. And there was, 9,000, 10,000 people in the ballpark. Like, I've been there many times. So I understand the empty, quiet City Field. Like, I completely understand that. And you got to build a product. But he's now been owner for what? 4.5, 5 years now. He spent more money than his franchise has ever spent. He's put more into a team and an organization and a stadium that any Mets owner has ever done. And he continues to spend. So he's trying to put a good product on the field. And again, it's up to the players to perform as well. I mean, if David Stearns gets every player that all of us wanted and they don't perform in the field, are you going to blame David Stearns and Steve Cohen, or are you going to blame the players? Now, it eventually turns to the GM and the owner, but you can't spend nearly $370 million on a team and say that, well, it's a bad product. Well, he built the product. He's not trading prospects for the last couple of seasons or big prospects. He's developing a farm system, which the Mets desperately needed. So he's spending money while developing a farm system. There's guys from the farm that are helping his team now, and we can go through the names, but you all know them. So he's building. But building a team through a farm system doesn't bring the fans because the Major League team is not doing well. So in New York, it's very hard to rebuild. Now, the Mets have, tried to technically do both at the same time. It doesn't work, right? Unless you spend a ton of money. And that's what Steve Cohen's doing. Now, it's not easy to do. Develop a farm system and spend a lot of money on a big league club. A lot of teams don't do that. It's either rebuild or spend a lot of money. In New York, it's very hard to rebuild and not spend any money and develop a farm system over 3 to 5 years. That's tough to do. That means a lot of losing and a lot of high draft picks. And you hope they turn out. And that's a problem with a lot of teams that don't want to spend money. They hope their farm system that they developed and they drafted high over the last 3 to 5 years, if they don't develop, they're in trouble. Look at the Baltimore Orioles. What if those draft picks fail? They're not going to sign most of them. So they're going to go back to square one. That's what Steve Cohen has to avoid, because one, you got the Yankees who make the playoffs every single year almost and are winning 90 plus games every single year. And you got to compete with that. Is obviously they're not in your division. You don't have to compete division wise, but again, they're in your city. So you're in your state. You got to do it. So it's hard to rebuild in New York. And that's the problem. And he has to do it. So, and he's doing it now. He's rebuilding a farm system that was terrible and spending money. And he had to do that. I was one to say he had to do it. He could easily came in when he bought the team and says, I'm not going to put any money into this team yet. I don't care how rich I am. We got to rebuild. We got to develop a farm system. He could have easily done that the first 3 seasons he owned this team, but he didn't. His first big move was trading for Francisco Lindor. Then right after that, signing him to a major deal. Not too long after that, he got Max Scherzer. Right? He brought in Starlin Marte. Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha. I know that those are highlight names, but they were solid moves. They made what 2022 was until it wasn't. Well, Rose, yeah, but let's be honest. Season tickets are sold mostly before the season, and that was when we got Soto. We got Juan Soto at the winter meetings, or right before the winter meetings. So the Mets had 2.5 months. Met fans had 2.5 months to get excited, and don't think for a second that tickets weren't sold because of Juan Soto. And now. Season tickets probably, bumped up and sold out a little bit more when they re-signed Pete Alonso late in the offseason, but they did it. Ethan, I agree. Fans won't put up with the rebuild. That's why when people say, oh, trade this guy, trade that guy, this guy, trade these guys, I don't want them here anymore. or whatever that is. When fans say that, you're like, yeah, but when you lose 95 games, you'll be the first one complaining. There was fans in 2023 pissed off that the Mets traded major league guys for prospects in 2023. There was fans pissed off. I mean, I understand why the players on the team were pissed off, because they're trying to win. So you're kind of breaking up your team. So I understand why they were mad. But fans being mad are the same ones that saying, "Oh, spend this money. Don't trade that guy. Get this guy. Get that guy." And yet, when you have to make a hard decision to bring in prospects because you're not having high draft picks when you're winning 85 games, you're not going to be in the top 5. You're lucky if you're top 10 or 11. So you have to understand that. When you pick 10, 11, 12, because you're in the middle of the pack, because you're barely winning you're barely winning 84, 85 games, you're in the middle of the pack in the draft. The Mets are not going to lose 95 games 4 years in a row to get, top 3 picks. It's rare, and they don't. That they were in the middle, and that's a tough way to go, and especially when the Wilpons weren't spending money. So they were in a tough spot, and Steve Cohen had to do something. And in 2023, I mean, look what we got. We got Clifford, Gilbert, and Acuna for Max Scherzer and Verlander. Like, those were amazing trades. Like, you had 2 broken down pitchers that teams fell for, think they were going to help their team, and they basically didn't. So the Mets kind of stole these guys from them. Well, Rouse, of course, his goal is to make money. He'd be stupid to say otherwise. He would be lying. I'm glad he's told the truth. Because what else do you go to work every day? Is your goal to go to work to make money, or is your goal to go to work because you really want to help your company you work for? Right? I'm sorry. Everybody's goal is to make money. I don't care if you own a business or you wake up every day to go to work for a company. You ain't doing it because you like the company. Even if you like the company, you ain't going to work for free. So your goal is to make money. You don't spend a god-awful $1.5 billion to buy a team and don't want to make money. Of course you do. So I'm glad he's telling you the truth, because he'd be lying if he says otherwise. And CD, yeah, I Rouse, see, yeah, sure. Of course, of what they did last year, it's going to bump up season ticket sales. But you really think last year made season ticket sales be sold out? Packages be sold out? Juan Soto has something to do with that. Let's not act like Juan Soto didn't have anything to do with that. That's the biggest free agent the Mets have ever signed. And you took him away from the Yankees. So let's not act like Soto didn't have much to do with it. Now, again, last year had a lot to do with it as well. But they're not showing up and averaging 36,000 in April, in the beginning of the year, in their first 2 homestands of the year, because they played well last year. Now, it helps. I think it also helped that you get Juan Soto and your owner calls the fans out. Yeah, right. I agree. Like, I don't care if Cohen says, yeah, I want to make money. Well, duh. Everybody does. It would be crazy if he said no. Of course you do. You want some type of ROI on your from your investment. No, you want some return of investment on what you invested your money in. Like, of course you do. Everybody wants ROI. Why do you think there's 401ks and stocks and shares and all that stuff and IRAs? Because you want return on investment, right? Of course you do. So, like, I have no problem with him saying that. He's not wrong. Like, nobody wants to go into something that they invested money in and lose money every single year you have that company or organization. That would be crazy. So good for him for not lying to us, because we all would have picked it up. All right, let's see what we got here. Well, David, we just got into the conversation about, Steve Cohen and all that stuff, and it's been a good chat in the chat. So we just bring it up. It's cool. It's all right, right? We're having a conversation here. There's no game today. We know what the record is. We know how many games up we're on the NL East, right? Tomorrow, I'm not sure if I can be able to do a pregame or a postgame because I'd be driving to DC when it comes to the pregame. So it would be hard to do. I'm not sure if Chris is going to be able to do it, but if he is, cool. That would be awesome. But I'll definitely let you guys know. You'll see the stream if it pops up. Maybe I'll do it from the car or maybe hotel if I get there early enough. We'll see. What did Brad say? Let me see if I can click on the comments because it's not making me do it again. Rels, come on. Seriously? I'm not talking about, a good deed. All right, Rels, you go to work. I guarantee you don't do it because you want to do that for until you retire. Just because. Right? Like, I'm not saying everybody does things for money. I'm not saying you're going to help, Cheryl, who's 97 years old and with her bags. That's a good deed. Rels, I understand that. Winning makes people come. That's an obvious comment. But what is winning? Before you win, what do you got to do? You got to bring in good players. And in the offseason, before the season started, when the Mets weren't 18-7 yet, and there was no record, why were tickets sold? Because you brought in players fans wanted and good players, very good players. That's why. But when the season starts, yes, of course, you got to win. Of course. Like, why do you think Yankee Stadium is sold out or mostly to capacity every single time you go to Yankee Stadium? Because they have a consistent history of winning, at least record-wise, and making the playoffs, mostly consistently. Like, that takes years, right? Did you see Yankee Stadium in the 80s? It was a ghost town. The Mets ran the 80s. Shea Stadium was packed. So winning obviously does that. And when you consistently win throughout at least a 10-year span, and you're consistently winning, making the playoffs, you're going to have capacities like you have at the homestand the first 2 times. Making money with the team is not a luxury. Nobody buys a team. No normal person is going to buy a team and say, well, making money with a team is luxury. The whole point of buying a team is to make money. Like, have you seen the evaluation of the Mets since Steve Cohen bought the team? What did he buy them for? $1.2 billion? They're nearing $2 billion. What, you think that's just natural? You think it just happens? No. Like, sorry, making money with the team is not a luxury. No owner is going to buy a team knowing they're always going to not make money. Like, it's not a luxury. It's a well-out plan knowing that you're going to make money, especially a franchise in New York. Like, Steve Cohen will sell the team in 5 years if he's never making money on the Mets. Like, let's be honest about that. Like, nobody is going to. I mean, he's building. I believe he got one of the casino license, the downstate casino license, and he's going to build over about a 10-year span. He's going to have apartment buildings, restaurants, bars, casino, everything. You think he's doing that just to spend money? Just to put smile on people's faces? Yeah, of course he does. He wants to make Met fans to be good and be happy. But there's an investment. There's an ROI in that plan, including owning the Mets. The Wilpons dug a hole so deep from the Mets and their franchise that it took a few years for Steve Cohen just to make it, I mean, just to not be so in debt because he paid off a lot of the franchise debt. That was another reason why the Wilpons sold. It wasn't just because he paid $1.2 billion. He paid a lot of the debt that the franchise had. So he spent a lot of money, but he knows at some point it's going to be a good investment. You don't buy a stock because, well, you like the name. You buy it because you hope you get a return on your investment. Yeah, Rose, I understand that. But again, he's not going to lose money year after year after year after year. He talks about it. Listen to him. He goes, I don't make money on the Mets. I'm losing money. And yes, this is not his only venture. Understandable. But he's not 37 years old. He made his money in his hedge fund. His main focus when he's not really running that business anymore because he kind of stepped down. Obviously, he owns the hedge fund, but he basically is not the guy running it on a day-to-day basis. He's at the Met games. He's on the Met games on the road. So you can't run a hedge fund always on the road and always away. Yeah, and of course, winning is important, but you got to bring in the people and the players to start winning. And nobody buys tickets before. Oh, some do. Obviously, if you're always like me, I was always a season ticket holder for years. I'd buy the tickets. I would bitch and moan because I wanted certain players, but I was always going to games. Like I'm one of those suckers. Like I am. Like last year, if I wasn't moving, I would have bought my season tickets, but I didn't because I was moving. Not really smart, right? I mean, I don't want Met tickets that I can't use on almost a daily basis at home, right? Why? Because it's not a good investment. Yeah, exactly, Brad, right? You don't take on other ventures, other opportunities to lose money no matter how rich you are. I'm sorry. Because if that's the case, then every rich person in the world wouldn't do anything at that point after they got all their money. Like, that's why millionaires become billionaires and billionaires become trillionaires. Like, that's why. Like, major rich people and the biggest millionaires, billionaires in the world don't stop trying to make money. Like, it's like, I'm sorry. Sports franchises, for the most part, especially if they're good franchises and have a historical value to them, and definitely has a fan base, you if you can get in, because it's rare, you get in to make money. Yeah, Rels, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. Steve Cohen is not doing this for kicks and giggles. All right. He's not going to be losing money forever. He wouldn't keep this. He wouldn't keep this forever. He would not. He would sell it within 10 years if he's never making money. And again, he's going to get probably close to even this year for sure. Like he's been. If you looked at again, have you looked at Forbes and the money lost from owning the franchise since Steve Cohen took over? It was near $400 million because of all the debt, because of attendance, because of sales. Like he's been losing money and he's been putting a lot of money into the stadium, as you can see. So not only is he losing money from the franchise and hasn't even been close to even, like every year it's been getting better, but there's a reason for that. Steve Cohen's not going to continue to spend money and continue to lose money. Like rich people don't do that. Have you noticed? Like it's just like it's not about taking my meds. Trust me, I'm taking my meds. I take my Advil. All right? But let's be honest. That's a fact. Rich people are rich because they continue to make money. They don't go into something and stay in it for the end of time when they're losing money. It's just not smart business. So he's doing what he can, everything he can, putting money into the stadium, putting money into the pitching lab, the farm system, new amenities for the players, new foods for the fans, all the new LED lights, the screen, all that fun stuff. Right? A lot of money spent. But he knows if they win, of course, winning is important. Obviously, you can't bring in Juan Soto and win 80 games. Like, that's going to be a problem. People won't show up at that point. But Steve Cohen understands that. But when you put a good product on the field and you get talented players, you hope that they win. So, listen. At this point, we're 18-7. It's working right now. Everybody's happy. Best record in baseball. Now let's get to the other stuff. Roster. Going to be some changes probably early tomorrow morning. I mean, they probably already decided who they're going to take off the roster to put McNeil and Alvarez back. Yeah, we know you're a sucker. Well, if you want to believe that, you can go suck this. So, Rels, you can go because you just don't make no sense. You got to stop. Like, stop it, please. Like, again, not calling you names. We agree to disagree. But if you want to do everything in your life to never make money, and that's how you feel, then you are oblivious to the world. Because everybody wakes up every day to try to make more money. Like, that's just a fact. If you don't believe that, then you're delusional. So go ahead and be delusional because we don't need that here. All right. I'm never always right. I would tell you that. I never take myself seriously. Everybody knows that. All right. Everybody knows that. But Steve Cohen didn't buy this team to lose money for as long as he owns the team. It's stupid business, no matter how much money you have. Rich people don't invest in something else to lose money over a long period of time. They just don't. Because he's been going into his own pocket, his own bank account. He ain't picking up from the Mets money because they're not making any. At least not overall. When the end of year comes in, the fiscal year ends, and he looks at it like, damn, I'm still $230 million in the hole. Well, yeah. So you can calm down. And again, you don't need to say any names. You don't have to. But again, if you want to be oblivious to the world and actually how the world works, that's on you, right? You live your life, I live mine. That's it. Paula, exactly. Thank you. Right? I don't even care if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates owner. You know the Pittsburgh Pirates owner is making money. The Pittsburgh Pirates are making more money than the Mets are making. The Mets are in the negative on making money right now. When Pittsburgh is gaining money. You know why? Because he doesn't spend any money on salary, even with a bad attendance, and it's one of the best ballparks in baseball. The scenery and everything's really nice ballpark. Even with the attendance low, because he don't spend a lot of money and they lose, owners like Steve Cohen, the Dodgers, the Yankees, all the teams that spend a ton of money over the luxury tax, it all goes to those teams and those owners, and they pocket the money. They don't put it into their team. So they make money. They're not stupid. Like, come on. So, all right. So we got the NFL draft in about, a half hour, 40 minutes from now, as we all know. So, again, I'm not going to keep you guys past 7 o'clock because a lot of people want to watch the draft. Understandable. If you're a Giant and Jet fan, God knows you're going to be watching. You know, I can care less what my Cowboys do because Jerry Jones is going to be making a pick, and that's a disaster within itself. So, roster moves, guys. McNeil and Alvarez are expected to be back and be on this roster and be ready to go on Friday. I'm assuming early in the morning, sometime around 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock or so, you'll probably have roster moves. And there's a pretty good chance that Beatty and Acuna will remain on this team. And there's a reason why for that. Because you have Jose Azocar and Hayden Sanger. You can easily take those two guys, send them back to the minors. I'm not sure if Azocar has options. He might have to get DFA'd. So that's where we'll get into the different roster moves and the possibility of the Mets might doing something else. If Azocar, I'm not sure, guys, but I didn't check this, so that's on me. But I don't know if Azocar has an option. So he might have to get DFA'd. Which, again, the Mets might be willing to do. I don't know. Because McNeil could play the outfield. I guess technically center field at this point since the Mets played him in the rehab assignments. So I guess they see McNeil being a utility outfielder if need be in all three positions. Because, again, if you take Azocar away, you got Jesse Winker and Starlin Marte as your backup outfielders, and that's scary within itself. So maybe McNeil is the other option, and he can just take Azocar's spot, and that's it. Sanger is probably going to go down. Alvarez is going to take that spot. Sucks because Sanger has played well, but it is what it is. that can keep Acuna and Beatty on this roster. And I think the Mets are trying to keep Acuna and Beatty on this roster. Again, the Mets still play Beatty. They're not hiding him. They're still playing him. So, and again, the Mets still believe in him. Like that's obvious. If they didn't believe in him, they wouldn't play him at all. I think they're trying to keep Acuna and Beatty on this roster. I think they like that Beatty can play third and second. I think they like that Acuna can play second and short at any given moment. I think they like that. They like that versatility. Right? And we're not even talking about the offensive side yet. I'm just talking about the defensive side because you need guys to play certain positions. You can't, because if you leave Azekar on this, which is a possibility, the Mets might leave Jose Azekar on this roster because, again, you got Winker and you got Marte. You really don't have a center fielder other than Tyrone Taylor. So if Taylor, God forbid, gets hurt, who's playing center field? Maybe Acuna. The Mets still haven't been willing to do that, even despite Siri not being here. So I don't know how comfortable the Mets are putting Luis Angel Acuna in center field, even though he has played there in the minors. So if they haven't done that yet, even with Siri being out and not having more than one center fielder at this point, and I know Nimmo technically is a center fielder, we don't want Nimmo there. It's just a walking wounded guy in center field. We don't want that. So I think it's going to be Azekar and Senga, but there is a talking point and a conversation that we have that Jose Azekar could remain on this roster. And that's when you say, okay, Senga's going to get replaced by Alvarez. Now, where does McNeil go? What spot does he take? Could it be Beatty? Could it be Danny Young? Could they take away a bullpen arm in Danny Young? Because you have Minter as a lefty. Danny Young has an option. So you can send him down, and you got to look at the options as well. Because if Azekar doesn't have an option, I don't know if the Mets are willing to lose him. So they might keep him on the roster. So it might be Senga and Young keeping Beatty and Acuna. And then, another conversation in about another month and a half or a month or so, when Montas and Manaea, one of those guys or both of those guys are ready, then we'll have another conversation about the roster. But right now, we're seeing how McNeil and Alvarez are going to get back on this roster because they will be activated on Friday. So, again, the easy answer, Azekar and Senga, right? If Azekar has an option, great. He just goes back down to the minors, problem solved. You keep Acuna on his team, you keep Beatty on his team, you got McNeil, you got Alvarez. Yeah, D-Max, so that's what I'm thinking. So I'm assuming he don't have no options. So, again, I don't know what the Mets are thinking. If they believe, and maybe that's the reason why they put McNeil in center field, because, again, I don't know why they just don't use Acuna at times. They haven't been willing to do that for whatever reason. I don't know if they don't trust him in center field yet. I don't know. But they haven't done it. So maybe they're playing McNeil in center field because they know they're going to DFA Azekar. And McNeil in, I guess, somewhat emergency situation, play center field if something happens to Tyrone Taylor or he comes out of the game or he can't play that game, whatever. Maybe that's why McNeil is playing center field in the rehab starts. Because they're going to DFA Azekar and saying it's going to go down, and then this conversation it's a moot point, right? So you would have Acuna, Beatty, and Young still on this team with McNeil and Alvarez. Again, I don't see any scenario where Beatty or Acuna is going to get sent down at this point now. Only because what they've done with Jeff McNeil, in my opinion. Once they put Jeff McNeil in center field in rehab starts, I'm like, okay. Now, they're looking for McNeil to play a lot of outfield, and that means Beatty and Acuna can stay. That's the only reason why once they started to put McNeil in center field, and again, I don't know how well he played. There haven't really been reports of how well he played. You just see or hear about the highlights of them hitting, not really how they played on the field. Even though Alvarez played a couple of innings, back-to-back games and all that, he haven't really had any. And again, maybe no balls were hit to McNeil in center field. I don't know. But there's a reason why McNeil has played center field in rehab starts. It only makes sense that you would get rid of the other outfielder that can play center field consistently in Azekar. And Senga only makes sense. Acuna and Beatty, I think the Mets still want him on this roster. And again, if McNeil was just playing second base, I would be like, oh, Well, it's a possibility. Maybe Beatty would have got sent down, but still, I think they're trying to keep Acuna and Beatty with McNeil and Alvarez on this roster. D-Mac, yeah, Acuna does have a good arm. Absolutely. You seen his shortstop last year when Lindor is out. He has a great arm. He has a strong arm. So, and he definitely does. So we'll see how that works with the roster. Again, tomorrow morning we'll definitely find out who it is. Again, easy options is Azakar getting DFA'd, Senga back to the minors, Senga back to the minors, and then McNeil and Alvarez are activated. Problem solved. Young still on the team, Acuna and Beatty with Alvarez and McNeil. So, and McNeil and Alvarez will probably be in the lineup. Where McNeil plays, I have no idea. I would assume second base, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe Nimmo DH and McNeil's in left field. Who the hell knows? But again, it's good problems to have because you don't want to really get anybody off this roster because the team's playing well. You don't want to mess up that mojo, regardless if the guy's playing well or not. It's kind of, you don't want to mess with that. But again, McNeil was your starting second baseman and Alvarez was your starting catcher prior to the season, prior to them getting hurt. So we shall see. Well, yeah, Dolo, he's going to be on the team because they didn't make a decision yet. He's got to be over there. And they always keep two players, nearby in hotels as like a 27, 28-man option just in case, keeping them close by. And who knows if there's a doubleheader. There's rain in the forecast. So you're allowed to keep guys with the team, not in uniform, but with the team. So D-Mac, I don't think Acuna's getting any reps in center field. Because wouldn't this since Siri gotten hurt, what is that? 10 days now? Acuna hasn't played center field. It seems like there hasn't even been a thought of putting him in center field. They talked about it, but they haven't. Why haven't they done that yet? That's why I think maybe they don't really like Acuna in center field. Can he do it? Serviceable? Probably. He's athletic. There should be no reason why he probably can't. But again, are you really going to – maybe Acuna's not very good. Maybe he has a hard time reading balls. I don't know. I'm not sitting there watching him in the minors in center field, and there's not many reports about him playing center field and what he's done. The Mets know. So if they feel comfortable with McNeil playing center field over Acuna, they know better than we do. We might think it's bonkers and stupid, but they know. They believe Jeff McNeil can do it. They put him out there. Haven't been any reports saying that he couldn't do it. So I don't know. Stanley, I think Beatty would be a bench guy like he was going to be to start the season. Remember, Acuna wasn't supposed to be on this team. Like, I think a lot of Met fans forget about that part. Going in before McNeil got hurt, all signs were leading to Brett Beatty being the bench player, being the utility infielder. Right? That was happening. Acuna wasn't making his team. Once Jeff McNeil got hurt, there was possibility that Acuna and Beatty could both make the team. And then when Alvarez went out, it was so clear that Acuna and Beatty was probably going to make this team together. Yeah, Acuna has been practicing in center, but again, he hasn't played. Series has been out, 10 days already, 9 days already? And Acuna still hasn't been out there. Now, I think it's an option if you run out of options and people get hurt or, something happens during the game, but they still haven't thrown him out there to start in center field when they could have, right? They've been playing Azakar out there over Acuna. So that's why the conversation is good to have because the Mets might want to keep Azakar as another center field option other than Nimmo and Acuna. They don't want to put Nimmo in center field. I'm not sure if they really want Acuna in center because why haven't they done that yet? Jose Azakar has played center field twice and he started. So I don't know, but that's why it's a conversation because hey, if Azakar stays on this roster, now you can be talking about Sanger and Beatty being off this roster, or they just send Denny Young down with Sanger. It's just a matter of what they want on this team. Who do they want on the bench? What do they think is going to be more important to them? And we'll just have to wait to see. So overall, McNeil and Alvarez will be back on this roster. They will be activated. It's going to be fascinating to see. Again, it could be a whole bunch of nothing, and it's just Azakar and Sanger, and it's like, oh, okay. Ray, I mean, maybe. I don't know if Beatty's going to be. Let me see if I can click on the comment. That would be nice. Let's see. All right, look at that. It worked. All right. I don't know. But I think they do know that Beatty can be more productive off the bench. And I'm not talking about pinch running situation. I'm talking about coming off the bench as a pinch hitter, coming in for defensive purposes at third base, whatever it might be. I think they think Beatty can do that because, again, there's been conversations, there's been talks about Acuna not being focused when he's not playing. And again, he's still been not playing. He still hasn't started over Beatty every single time. Right? He came in late for defensive purposes. So can he do it? I don't know. I mean, Beatty technically has been platooning with Acuna. So can he be cold for 2 days straight and then come in and, get a pinch hit appearance? I don't know. We haven't really seen it. But I think they believe, and again, I don't want to put Acuna on the bench. I think that's hurting his growth. Beatty, what growth is there? Maybe he'll be a better bench player. I don't know. But Acuna still has development to do. It's stupid to keep him on the bench and not play him every day. That's what I don't like. So putting him on the bench when they already talked about his lack of focus, his sometimes looks lazy. So when he's not in the game, there's been questions about him being focused. Do you want to have a guy say, hey, Acuna, pinch hit this inning, who hasn't been focused throughout the game? Whatever that might mean. The organization put it out there. Lindor put it out there, not me. So don't yell at me. They brought that up. Now, that's a growing process. He's 22 years old. But would you trust a player that is not focused during a game on the bench and doing whatever he's doing, whatever they're thinking that he's doing, and saying, go ahead, go hit? Like, you can't trust a player like that. Again, that's why I want Acuna playing, because it doesn't make sense to sit him. You're hurting his growth overall. So we'll see. But I still think it's going to be Azakar and Sanger as the ones being sent down for McNeil and Alvarez to be activated. So last but not least, guys, the draft's going to start very, very soon, so I'm not going to keep you anymore. National Series. You see the pitching matchups. You got Senga, Holmes, McGill, Cannon against Irvin, Lord, Parker, Williams. 4-game series in D.C. Mets are red hot, 18-7, 7-game winning streak, best record in baseball, 5 games up in their division, playing one of their NL East division teams. There should be no reason why they can't win 3 out of 4. Right? 4-game series are hard to win. And sweep, they're not easy. The Nationals got a good bunch of young players. We know they got good pitching. They can be pests. They can be annoying. These prospects are probably a year or two away when they're really going to hit their peak, but they're still good. So, and yeah, DMAC, we did lose Gore. We missed Gore, excuse me. So that's good. But there's still good pitching against us. But there should be no reason why the Mets can't win 3 out of 4. I know I'll be at DC. Chris will be at DC. Ton of Met fans will be there, obviously. Got the 7 line there. We got the DC Mets there. Just a whole bunch of crazy Met fans. It's going to be a ton of Met fans. It's going to be Citi Field kind of south because it's in the middle of the East Coast. So it's Citi Field kind of south. It's going to be a ton of Met fans there. And it's going to be loud. And we're probably going to overtake the national fans. So overall, you got the pitching matchups, right? They're not going to be easy, but you got Sanger, you got Holmes, McGill, and Cannon. The offense is still finding ways to get the big hit when they need them, and they're playing well. So let's end this month of April on a great note. Let's go Mets. Thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live. Before you go, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Hit that like button and enjoy the NFL draft if you're an NFL fan. If you're a Jets and Giant fan, whatever you want, I hope you get. And for the Cowboys, it's Jerry Jones. That's all I have to say. So, enjoy your night, guys. Enjoy the draft. I'll see you. Hopefully, I'll see you either a pre and post. If not, I'll probably post something, some pictures, maybe a quick YouTube short or something like that. And again, follow me on X, guys. Follow me on TikTok as well. TMWR underscore NYM is on TikTok. I might be posted on TikTok a little bit because it's just a quick thing to do while I'm traveling. It would be good to watch just to pick up and just to see if I'm not doing any YouTube content at the time. So enjoy your night, guys. Enjoy the NFL draft. Let's go Mets. And guys, we got the best team in baseball. Let's keep it going, guys. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets.
Bob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year.